But some groups are determined to subvert the army's grip on information. To give people access to independent news, Amnesty International has brought thousands of radios it wants to smuggle across the border. Youth organisation members of the Burmese ethnic Karen minority are taking some of the first radios in. It's a dangerous mission. They have to choose their crossing carefully. Being found with hundreds of radios would lead to arrest and torture. Carrying the sack of radios, their first stop is a camp of several thousand refugees. In these remote parts of Burma, people don't have the cash for luxuries like radios. That night, they get their first chance to hear independent news, or any news about the election. Dewa too is writing down the news that she'll share with her class and other villagers the next day. A revolt against their strong military rule is what the army fears most. In 2007, thousands of Buddhist monks led an uprising that shook the foundations of military rule. These last moments were filmed by DVB camera teams. The army moved in and opened fire, killing 138 and arresting hundreds more. Monks were among those beaten and killed. Many remain in prison or under surveillance. Secret internal police files have been leaked to DVB, revealing how the military is trying to ensure there's no similar disturbance around the election. The Democratic Voice of Burma says the files show how a large delegation of senior Burmese police officers was sent to China to see how it controls troublesome riots.
Depending on the document that we got from the police source, some of the senior police officers are getting training in foreign country, especially in China. They are getting training, especially about how to crack down the demonstrations, especially riot police.
At the border, I meet Tiha, a contact who can take me to some of those involved in the 07 uprising. Tiha was jailed for political activism, the last 6 years spent in solitary confinement. But as he explains, the cost was a lot more than his freedom.
They sentenced me to death first, but on the 1st of January in 1993, my sentence was commuted to life, 20 years. And I spent my life in prison for 17 years, 6 months and 16 days total.
Do you have a family?
Yes, but now my family has been broken because when I got arrested, my daughter was just 3 months old baby, and so we didn't meet each other. We never met each other till I was released. So when I was released, my daughter was just about to be 18. So when she saw me first time in Rangoon after being released, she told me, I accept you. You are my daddy, but I don't know you. Sorry. I had passed my childhood without parents because mom died in 1997 because of you, daddy. She told me like that. But I met her 5 times in Rangoon. Now she's 20. So gradually, I think she understands me gradually.
We travelled to Umpiam camp, home for 30,000 refugees from Burma, including 50 former political prisoners. Many of these monks were involved in the Saffron Revolution. They escaped after many years in prison. Senior monk U Nyanyet Tara says the monks are still organising.
Now the say so ya and the or day away so up here. Young lady, the wake up well, Uzeno, that night so stand up behind Josan is.
He said military intelligence is infiltrating the monasteries and arrests continue. He told me a senior monk was just jailed for 15 years for having a laptop and video camera in his monastery.
You got what you are saying. Let's see to Tiamo Soya, Tiamo Soya Pito, Chimbale, you got Westro. To Ruben Nea Peyabi, to Ruben Pini Choche.
As the election nears, the information war intensifies. Further north on the Thai-Burma border, a team from Amnesty International has flown in to check the progress of their radio project. The next batch of several hundred radios is ready to go in. For Amnesty, this is a dramatic new step from defending human rights to actively intervening in the defence of freedom of speech.
We're lobbying at an international level for people to be able to participate in the political process this year, but we wanted to do something that would have an impact on the ground as well. Media censorship was identified as a key issue for people not being able to access their rights.
To understand the dangers involved, they review video that Karen took of their journey.
So this is you going to buy the radios?
Yes.
There's so many factors, aren't there, that are involved in you doing this work in KYO.
Finally, it gets too dangerous for the couriers to go alone. To get these radios deeper, they have to hand over some of them to armed members of the Karen National Liberation Army. It's a confronting issue for Amnesty.
Is there an issue for Amnesty in the fact that you've got at least 2 armed guys taking them in?
Amnesty doesn't endorse the political views of any armed groups operating within Burma. We're working with community-based organisations to get radios into the hands of the people that need them, and to do that as safely and as effectively as possible.
In Umpiam refugee camp, former political prisoners have gathered to discuss the election. They tell me Thailand's foreign minister has just said that Burmese refugees can be sent back after the election. Thailand has since retracted the statement, but these stateless, unregistered refugees feel vulnerable.
I'm afraid of being deported back to Burma because we cannot trust this military government, even if they change democratic government. Yeah, same people.
On the Thai border, David Matheson from Human Rights Watch has come to the office of an association helping political prisoners in Burma.
This is the total number of political prisoners, 2,193, that have been documented by the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners.
The election is being held with 2,100 political prisoners still in jail. Many of them are key members of the democratic opposition. He says many Western countries are now ready to use the elections as a way of getting rid of sanctions and gaining access to Burma's rich resources of gas, oil, teak, gold and timber.
I think there's a lot of business interests that want to expand, that want to head off the extent of Chinese and Southeast Asian investment. Things like that I think will change. There'll be an illusion of openness in a democratic system. And then I think slowly there'll just be more and more business engagement, a toning down of some of the more human rights and political criticism, which I think will be disastrous. It'll be a betrayal of the people of Burma.
For the Burmese, only one thing is certain. No matter what the people want, the outcome of the election is assured. The generals have seen to that.
Audacious and intriguing are two other words you could use to describe Evan Winton's report, with more than a little help, of course, from those brave folk from DVB, the Democratic Voice of Burma. And Evan joins me in the studio. Evan, good to see you. You're not so old Burma hand. You've been there a lot. You've covered this story for ages now. I mean, what's with these guys? We used to call them slark. Now we just tend to call them just mad.
Well, I think if you look at that, actually, they're a very clever group, a small group, a cabal, a clique of military generals who have maintained their grip on power for more than 50 years now in various permutations. These guys, and as we've seen with this election, they are now trying to change their image. They're changing their clothes so that the international community can deal with it.
They don't really think they're fooling anybody.
They do. I think what we're seeing, and particularly from people like Dave Matheson, for example, he's seeing indications from the European Union, countries that want an excuse to allow them to go into Burma.
They've got stuff people want, so they're prepared to do deals with them.
They are. They've got resources. They're in a very strategic position. China is all over them. The Europeans definitely want to get back in there. America's not quite sure what to do. People may try and keep up the human rights pressure, but at the same time they want contact with Burma.
Yep. What about the idea of regime change? I mean, is it possible when people are prepared to do deals with these sort of repressive, undemocratic regimes, military juntas, military dictatorships, call it what you will, I mean, it makes a bit of a joke of the whole thing if we're prepared to cop that with this sort of country, not with others.
Well, as people have been saying, this election, if it goes ahead the way they want it, if it gives it just the fig leaf of legitimacy, which is what they want, it means that the generals have got away with it, got away with torture, repression, jailing, and even killing the dissidents who've represented a pro-democracy movement for so many years. The regime change idea has been discussed and has been asked for by many democratic groups inside the country for years. It's not been heeded because after Iraq, frankly, the West is terrified of doing that.
Yeah. I wonder what it is. I thought about there are countries, 4 countries I could name off the top of my head anyway. Iran, right, North Korea, Zimbabwe and Burma, where we throw our hands up in the air in shock, horror, and then tut-tut, but they go on as though nothing really matters. I mean, do you think that the world has just got this place in the too hard basket politically and that's what we have to live with?
Burma's been very clever about playing the world against each other. China and Russia protects Burma at the United Nations, and I think at any time there's any serious move against it, the West is unable to do it because of that. But it does underline the failure of the United Nations to make any effective change in a country like the ones you've just discussed, where people are desperately crying out for some sort of help.
Of course, there's the ongoing saga, the melodrama almost, of Aung San Suu Kyi, who you've interviewed in the past yourself. I mean, she's still there, still under house arrest. What's the score with her?
She's been, if you like, sidelined by the military. The condition, again, the military made the condition that she would have to be expelled from the party if her party was going to run in the election. So that's a pretty good indication of the type of democracy we're about to see in Burma. Not only that, 435 other members would have to be expelled. The party then withdrew, but it means that they're not engaged in the process. Now, there's division about whether that's the right thing to do or not, but what's about to happen straight after the election, the military is going to release Aung San Suu Kyi from house arrest about a week after the poll. Now, this will be seen as a sign to the West, look, we are democratic, we've let her out, but...
Yeah, I would have thought letting her out before the election might have been the way to go.
Indeed.
It's a very strange situation. You keep us up to date, mate.
Thanks.
Good to talk to you.